10,000 years. That's how long humanity lived by one simple rule on Earth.
The sun rises, you work. The sun sets, you rest. That was life.
Every tool was just an extension of muscle and bone. Nothing more at all.
Power came from a horse's back, a river's current, or the wind itself. A businessman closing deals in 1700 would have recognized the world of Julius Caesar.
Same game, same rules, everything made by hand, everything local, everything completely limited back then.
But then something broke. Late 1700s. The hills of Britain changed it all.
Cold, wet, packed with minerals beneath the soil. That's where the old rhythm shattered forever. Humans figured out how to rip energy straight from the ground beneath their feet.
And once we learned that trick, there was no going back for humanity, ever.
We call it the Industrial Revolution. It kicked off around 1760 in Britain.
Spread like wildfire through Europe, then jumped the Atlantic to the United States rapidly.
This wasn't just about swapping hand tools for machines. It was so much more.
This was the moment we cracked open millions of years of stored energy completely. Buried in the earth and used it to build an entirely new kind of civilization.
Mid-1700s, Britain ruled the world's economy, an empire beyond anything before it.
Stretched from Caribbean sugar plantations to the jeweled territories of India. Trade built this. A nation built on trade, ambition, and ideas. But here's what really mattered most.
Britain was sitting on a gold mine. Except it wasn't gold. It was coal.
Mountains of it. That single resource combined with culture changed everything about our world.
Rewarded risk-takers and innovators. About to ignite a fire burning the old world.
To ashes and forge something brand new from the wreckage. How did one nation dominate? 5 reasons. 5 pillars that turned Britain into an industrial juggernaut beyond compare today. Pillar 1. Food. Britain had already revolutionized farming. Mechanical seed drills changed the game.
Iron plows. More crops with fewer hands working the fields than ever seen before.
Thousands of workers suddenly had no fields to tend. They were hungry for wages.
Pillar 2. Stability. While Europe tore itself apart, Britain had something extremely rare then.
A legal system you could trust. Property rights were protected by the law, always.
Investors could form companies without worrying some king would seize everything on a whim.
Pillar 3. Geography. Britain was an island laced with rivers and natural deep harbors. Moving goods by water? Easy, cheap, efficient. Landlocked countries could only watch with envy. Pillar 4. Science. The scientific revolution of 1600s had already happened here completely.
Newton, Boyle, Hooke. Britain built a culture where experimentation wasn't just accepted but celebrated.
Tinkerers and intellectuals shared ideas in coffee houses. Those conversations changed the entire world forever.
Pillar 5. Economics. Here's the kicker everyone missed. In Britain, labor was very expensive.
Coal was dirt cheap everywhere. That created a simple but incredibly powerful economic incentive here.
Build a machine doing work of 10 men for a few shovelfuls of coal. Game changed.
Before the factories rose up like iron temples, there was the putting out system here.
Picture this clearly. Small villages scattered across the English countryside. Families working inside homes.
Women at spinning wheels, turning raw wool and cotton into yarn every single day.
Men at hand looms, weaving that yarn into fabric. Slow, quiet, almost peaceful then. But demand for textiles was about to explode beyond anything anyone could have imagined.
Britain had developed an obsession with cotton. They called it white gold back then.
There was just one problem. Britain couldn't compete with India at all. Not even close.
Indian weavers produced fabrics so delicate, so beautifully crafted. British goods looked crude everywhere.
And Indian labor? 5 times cheaper than British workers. Britain was getting crushed badly.
Britain's government tried to protect local industries. They passed the Calico Acts, completely banning imports. Laws designed to block Indian textiles and save British wool and linen production everywhere. It backfired. Instead of killing competition, these laws lit a fire under British inventors.
The message was clear. If we can't import it, we'll build it ourselves completely.
1733. The first domino falls. John Kay invents the flying shuttle here.
Simple mechanism, massive impact. Overnight, weavers could produce twice as much cloth everywhere.
But there was a problem. Now the looms were too fast for yarn supply.
It took 8 people spinning yarn just to keep one weaver supplied constantly working.
For decades, this bottleneck strangled industry. Then James Hargreaves showed up with his solution.
The spinning jenny. Picture a wooden frame letting one person spin 8 threads simultaneously.
Small enough to fit in a cottage. Revolutionary enough to change everything about production.
But the real game changer? Richard Arkwright. He wasn't just an inventor at all.
He was a ruthless businessman who crushed anyone challenging his patents without any mercy. His creation was the water frame, a beast of a machine way too big. Powered by raw force of a river. Arkwright didn't just build any machine here.
He built the world's first real factory. Production wasn't a family business anymore now.
It was industrial, centralized, unstoppable. Within years, Samuel Crompton.
The spinning mule. A device producing thread finer and stronger than any human hands.
The numbers tell the story. 1750, Britain imported £2.5 million.
1850, 588 million pounds. That's not growth. That's an explosion.
Manchester, once a sleepy town, became Cottonopolis. 900 factories operated here, constantly running.
A sky stained permanent grey from coal smoke. An atmosphere vibrating with endless machinery.
As the price of cloth crashed, something else started climbing up dramatically everywhere.
Human cost. Indian hand-woven fabrics were still better quality for many decades afterward.
But British machines didn't need to be better. They just needed to be cheaper. And they were. So cheap they destroyed an entire industry on the other side.
Millions of Indian artisans lost everything. The global economy had just been rewritten completely forever. While textile mills transformed what people wore, another revolution was happening deep underground everywhere. Coal mines were digging deeper.
Demand for fuel was skyrocketing beyond anything seen before. But the deeper they went, the more they hit the same wall everywhere: water. Mines flooded constantly. Traditional pumps couldn't handle it. Men and horses working hand-cranked systems? Useless against the volume. So necessity did what it always does everywhere. It gave birth.
Early 1700s. Thomas Newcomen builds the first working piston-driven steam engine here.
These things were monsters. Hulking iron beasts positioned at the mouths of mine shafts.
By today's standards, wildly inefficient. They burned coal like it was going out of style.
But here's the thing. At the mine, coal was cheap. Nobody cared about waste.
What mattered was this. They could drain the mines. They let workers go deeper everywhere.
Then a Scottish instrument maker named James Watt changed everything about steam power completely.
Watt looked at the Newcomen engine and saw the fatal flaw clearly. The cylinder cooled.
Watt redesigned the engine with a separate condenser. One innovation. One redesign changed history.
Fuel consumption dropped to a fraction of what the old engines needed for operation.
When they developed it into a rotative engine, one that could turn a shaft continuously,
everything shifted. For the first time in human history, you didn't need wind anywhere.
You didn't need water. You didn't need animals. You could build a factory anywhere.
Steam-powered blast furnaces, hammered iron, drove looms, an invisible army of mechanical workers everywhere.
Steam didn't just power factories, it transformed iron production. For centuries, making iron meant charcoal,
which meant you were limited by how much wood you had available. Forests disappeared everywhere.
But the Darby family figured out you could use coke, refined coal, to fuel furnaces.
Suddenly, furnaces could be bigger. Output exploded. Cast iron went from expensive to cheap.
It became the building material of the new age. The iron bridge spanning water
wasn't just a bridge. It was a statement to the world. The age of iron arrived. New techniques like puddling and rolling drove costs lower. Puddling was hell for workers.
Workers stirring molten metal in furnaces hot enough to sear your lungs. Back-breaking work daily.
Deadly. Most didn't live past 40 years old. But their labor built the bridges here.
Factories. The railways that would eventually connect the entire world together through their sacrifice.
as factories multiplied, Britain's landscape changed beyond recognition. The age of urbanization had begun.
1800. Only 3% of the world's population lived in cities back then. And by 1900, nearly 50%. People poured in from the countryside in massive numbers.
Driven off their land by enclosure laws. Lured by the promise of factory wages.
Manchester became the blueprint. Population in 1717 was 10,000 people living there.
By the early 1900s, over 2 million. But nobody planned for this massive growth.
The growth was chaos. There wasn't enough money to build proper housing anywhere for workers. Families crammed into slums. Shacks with dirt floors, no running water, no sewage systems.
Friedrich Engels walked those streets and called them a stony desert of misery everywhere.
Rivers ran green with chemical waste and human sewage.
The smell of progress was real.
It was thick enough to choke on. Clean water became a luxury for rich people.
Inside the factories, a new kind of tyranny took hold everywhere.
On the farm before,
work followed the sun and the seasons. In the factory, work followed the clock.
The machines set the pace. Humans had to keep up constantly. 12 to 14 hours. 6 days a week. The only break was Sunday, and even that was grudging.
Most of the early textile workers were women and children everywhere. Child labor wasn't new.
The Factory Acts. First laws limiting working hours, starting the long process of reform.
But here's the twist. Despite the suffering, the Industrial Revolution created something unprecedented everywhere. A massive new middle class. Businessmen, clerks, foremen, engineers living in comfortable new homes.
For the first time, luxuries that once belonged only to wealthy people became affordable.
For ordinary people, sugar, tea, coffee, fine china. Progress wore two faces everywhere always. As production exploded, Britain hit a new bottleneck. The old infrastructure couldn't handle it.
Muddy roads, slow-moving river barges couldn't handle it. Moving coal, iron, cotton in bulk required something completely different. The solution? Rebuild everything. First came the canals everywhere successfully.
Projects like the Bridgewater Canal proved you could move materials by water far more efficiently. The results were immediate and dramatic. Coal prices in major cities cut in half.
Overnight, this success triggered Canal Mania, a construction boom connecting manufacturing hubs across the country.
A single horse pulling a canal barge could haul tens of times more weight.
Canals were just the warm-up act. The real star? The railway changed everything.
3 innovations made it possible. Cheap iron for rails, rolling mills, high-pressure steam engines.
Visionaries like Richard Trevithick and George Stephenson had a wild idea here. Put a steam engine
on wheels, run it on iron rails, and see what happens. What happened changed everything.
The first intercity railway, Liverpool to Manchester, opened to massive fanfare and crowds watching.
It connected a booming industrial town directly to a global shipping port for trade.
Travel time between cities reduced from days to hours. The railway shattered rural isolation.
Ideas could spread at the speed of steam. It created thousands of new jobs.
On the oceans, steam power was doing the same thing. Sailing ships had gotten faster.
But steamships meant one crucial thing. Global trade was no longer at the wind's mercy.
The world was shrinking. Merchants could now track shipments with precision once unthinkable before.